They told me I was crazy, that I made it all up, that the woman living in my house, wearing my clothes, calling my husband babe, was me. Even my own mother-in-law said, "You've always been unstable, Grace." But I know who I am. I built that career. I cared for that family, and now they've handed it all to her. My face, my name, my life. I don't need to scream to prove I'm real. I'll let the evidence speak, and when the truth hits, it won't knock. It'll burn everything they built with her, because I didn't lose my identity. They stole it. The mornings used to begin with coffee and silence. That day, it started with fresh croissants, a glass of orange juice, and my mother-in-law humming in the kitchen. She hadn't smiled at me in months, but now she was practically floating. "Morning, Grace," she said sweetly, placing a hand on my shoulder like it meant something. My husband sat at the table already, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up. "Your favorite," she added, pointing to the plate. I stared at the food like it was poisoned. I knew it wasn't, of course, but something was off. For 5 years, I'd lived in this house, paid for its renovation, handled its bills. I was the reason it stayed above water. Yet for 5 years, I had been John's wife, not our daughter. They tolerated me like a long-term tenant, cordial, necessary, replaceable. And now they were smiling? I took a bite. The croissant flaked perfectly. I chewed slowly, eyes shifting between them. My sister-in-law waved at me from the hallway. "You look great today," she said, and I nearly choked. That girl hadn't made eye contact with me in years. Later that afternoon, my husband offered to help me fix my laptop, something he'd never done without me begging. "You've been working too hard," he said. "Let me handle the updates for once." I handed it over hesitantly. He kissed my cheek and carried it into his office. That night, I couldn't sleep. A week passed, and their sweetness became a routine. Compliments, home-cooked meals, jokes at dinner. At first, I let it be. Maybe something had shifted. Maybe, for once, they were trying. But on the 8th day, I came home early from a canceled meeting and saw my mother-in-law and husband huddled around my laptop. The screen flickered with lines of code. Too fast for the untrained eye, but not for me. I was a systems engineer, a damn good one. They didn't hear me enter. I stood there long enough to hear, "Did she see anything?" and keep backing it up. If we lose this, it's over. I didn't confront them. Not then. That night, I accessed my own files. Passwords had been changed, my system logs wiped. But deep in the cache, I found traces. Someone had installed a keylogger. Every keystroke, every login, every message I had typed in the past 10 days had been recorded and sent to a remote server. I felt cold. The next morning, my ID card was missing. I asked John, and he shrugged. "Maybe you misplaced it," he said. The look in his eyes wasn't surprise. It was calculation. That evening, when I returned from work, the gate didn't recognize my code. I rang the bell. My sister-in-law answered with a confused look. "Can I help you?" I stared at her. "Open the damn door, Lila." She didn't move. "I think you have the wrong house." My heart hammered. I stepped back. The curtains parted upstairs. My husband stared down at me with a woman behind him. She looked just like me. Same height, same build, same shoulder-length dark hair. Even the way she tilted her head. Exactly how I did when confused. "John!" I shouted. He didn't come down. 2 officers pulled into the driveway 10 minutes later. One of them stepped out and asked for my name. I told them. "Ma'am," he said cautiously, "we received a report of a potential identity fraud attempt. The homeowners say you've been impersonating their daughter-in-law." I laughed. I thought it was a joke. "This is my house," I said. "I've lived here for 5 years. I'm Grace Morrow. That man up there is my husband." The woman came down the stairs. She had my clothes on, my shoes, my wedding ring. "I'm Grace," she said, holding up my ID. My stomach dropped. Her voice, it was mine. Not similar, not close, identical. She turned to the officers. "She's dangerous," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "She's been stalking me. She stole everything, my photos, my voice, my emails." The cops looked between us. "We'll need to sort this out at the station," one of them said. Both of you, please come with us." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My husband walked out onto the porch finally, arms crossed. "You need help, Grace," he said. "You've been unstable for a while now." "John," I whispered. "It's me." But he just turned around and went back inside. The cuffs clicked too tightly around my wrists. The police released me 12 hours later. No charges, just confused glances and a quiet apology. The officer whispered, "She passed the biometric scan." I didn't argue. I walked out of the station barefoot, still wearing the same clothes from the day before. My phone was locked, my cards declined, my name, my life, disappeared. The first night, I slept in a park. I sat on a bench in the dark, knees to my chest, watching strangers pass without a glance. The wind cut through my jacket like punishment. At 3 a.m., I finally broke down and sobbed into my sleeves. Not because I was cold or lost or terrified, but because they believed her. My husband, his family, everyone. They erased me, and no one blinked. I used a public computer the next morning to access my email. Denied. Account locked. Password reset had been triggered 3 days ago. I tried my bank next. Same result. "Grace Morrow has logged in recently," the message read. "Access denied for suspicious behavior." Ah, they thought I was the imposter. Over the next week, I drifted between cheap hostels and 24-hour diners, charging a burner phone in bathroom outlets and surviving off cold coffee and half-eaten sandwiches. I called old coworkers. None answered. I messaged friends. Nothing. Every version of my digital identity had been overwritten. Voice ID, retinal scan, two-factor authentication, all matched hers. I wasn't just locked out of my life. I'd been deleted. And the worst part? She was better than me. Or at least, that's what the world believed. She smiled more, wore brighter clothes, posted pictures of family dinners, charity work, morning yoga. My mother-in-law reposted every update, calling her my beautiful girl. My husband smiled in photos like he'd never looked at me that way. Grace Morrow 2.0, custom-built, upgraded, adored. On the 10th night, I sat alone in a pay-by-the-hour motel, scrolling a fake Facebook profile I'd created just to watch her. That's when I noticed something. A video posted a week ago, her giving a tech talk about AI ethics. My topic, my slides. Even the code behind her, my work. But one frame flickered oddly. I paused the video, rewound, frame-by-frame analysis. Something wasn't right with the lighting around her lips. The sync, the micro blinks, the rendering algorithm. It was subtle, far more advanced than any public deepfake. But I knew what I was looking at. It was mine. Not her, not my code, not her talk. Mine. 4 years ago, I'd built a beta system designed to detect inconsistencies in vocal resonance and facial movement, a diagnostic tool for diagnosing stroke symptoms via video call. It was shelved when my startup folded, but the core engine still lived on a flash drive, one I'd hidden years ago, paranoid about IP theft. No one else had access, unless she had copied it from me, unless someone had taken it, used it to become me. For the first time since I'd been erased, I felt heat rise in my chest. Not panic, not despair, anger, precision, purpose. I wasn't going to take my life back. I was going to dismantle the system that let her steal it. By dawn, I had a plan. I scoured the city for an old friend, Chris, a back-end dev I once mentored, now working freelance. I found her through an encrypted forum we used to share notes on facial recognition tech. I texted from a secure proxy, asking for help. She didn't ask questions. She showed up with 2 laptops, a portable hard drive, and a bottle of whiskey. "You look like hell," she said, sitting across from me in the dingy motel room. "I've been to worse," I said, "but I need your eyes. Just watch this." I played the video, paused on the flicker. Chris leaned in. "Is that your engine?" "Version 1.7, I said, "before I stripped the stabilization layer." Chris stared. "She's not even trying to cover the artifacts. She didn't think anyone would know what to look for." "So what now?" "We expose her." Legally? I didn't answer, because this wasn't about the law. Not anymore. This was about truth, about the system that decided she was the real me because she smiled more, because she played the role better. Because everyone wants a perfect version of someone, even if they have to invent it. They chose her. So I'd give them a choice they couldn't ignore. I didn't reclaim my name. I abandoned it. The day I became Lena Hart, I buried Grace Morrow in a cloud of encrypted proxies, falsified credentials, and a new social security number built from a synthetic identity profile. Chris helped me navigate the system, registering an LLC under the name Pulse Protocol, an innocuous AI consultancy with zero press and maximum firewall. Lena was confident, polished, a little sharper around the edges. She wore bolder lipstick, used fewer pleasantries, and never made the mistake of asking to be accepted. Lena didn't knock. She hacked the lock and walked in, and she was dangerous. Within 3 months, Pulse Protocol had 5 clients, small firms with big data leaks and no idea how to protect themselves. We didn't advertise. We didn't post. We whispered our existence into encrypted circles. We were ghost hunters in a digital world teeming with identity theft, voice cloning, and deepfake extortion. And those who found us? They were survivors, just like me. One client was a nurse whose face had been used in adult content generated by AI. Another was a college student denied financial aid after someone hijacked her FAFSA profile. We helped them reclaim what was theirs, not through law enforcement, but through system reprogramming. We weren't fixing people's lives. We were proving they'd been stolen. And with each case, I felt more like myself again. But not Grace. Not the woman who used to cry quietly in her car outside the family estate, praying for someone to notice her. Lena had no time for prayers. On a cold Wednesday morning, Chris handed me a drive. "Got something," she said, "from the data tap we placed 2 weeks ago." She'd embedded a silent tracker into one of my old banking accounts, one I'd created in college and never used after marriage. Somehow, the other Grace had tried to access it. Her system pinged it back, and we traced the request. The money wasn't coming from my account. It was flowing in. Monthly transfers. All from the family trust. "Your in-laws are bankrolling her," Chris said. "Tens of thousands. Quiet, recurring, traced through 3 shell companies." I stared at the screen, eyes narrowing. She's not just wearing my name. She's profiting off it. But it didn't make sense. The real Grace, me, never touched the family trust. My husband always said it was locked up until his father's estate was settled. Complicated taxes, he'd said. Red tape. Lie. It took another 3 weeks to build a mirror system, an interface that mimicked their banking behavior in real time. We didn't touch anything. We just watched. Data flowed like blood through a beating heart, and in that heart, my husband, John. He wasn't just aware. He was facilitating it. Emails, secure chats, even a signed digital document authorizing Grace Morrow to manage financial decisions in his name. It wasn't just complicity, it was conspiracy. I watched the footage again. John smiling at Ivy, his hand on the small of her back, a gesture so casual I'd almost missed it. But it wasn't casual. It was routine, intimate, practiced. He hadn't been fooled. He'd chosen her. Chris looked over at me as I scrolled through the logs. "You okay?" I didn't answer right away. I was trying to feel something. Rage, grief, betrayal, but there was nothing, just clarity. "He always wanted someone easier," I said finally. Someone who didn't challenge him, someone who didn't build faster, think sharper, question everything. And now he gets to watch me burn it all down. That night, I submitted a proposal under Pulse Protocol's name to the Global Ethics in AI Conference, a major event hosted by one of the top tech universities in the country. The theme, Restoring Trust in Digital Identity. It got accepted. I didn't use Grace's story, not directly. I used data from our cases, anonymized victims, patterns of systemic exploitation through deepfake identity constructs. I built a presentation so tight, so undeniable, that even the most skeptical professor couldn't argue with it. And then I built the trap. We created a test, an AI-led verification system that could detect inconsistencies in recorded speech patterns across multiple social accounts. The premise? To demonstrate how influencers might unknowingly fall prey to mimicry. The reality? It was a targeted tool. We fed Grace's public videos through it. The results were conclusive. She wasn't just a fake, she was engineered. Her voice lagged microscopically. Her mannerisms were rehearsed. Her facial microexpressions lacked natural sequence variants. No human could imitate that without software. I had the proof. All that remained was the execution. The conference was 2 weeks away. I wasn't going to ask the world to believe me. I was going to force them to see it. I didn't need applause. I needed silence, the kind that follows truth landing like a hammer on a glass table. The forum post went live on a Wednesday afternoon, quietly uploaded to a digital forensics board frequented by cybersecurity professionals, open source researchers, and a handful of skeptical whistleblowers. I used Lena's name, not Grace's. The title read, "The Grace Protocol: How One Identity Was Replaced, Rewritten, and Rebranded by AI." The post included annotated video footage, side-by-side biometric comparisons, frame-by-frame facial anomaly breakdowns, and a full technical write-up of the detection system Chris and I had created. I didn't accuse, I exposed. In the first hour, it got 40 views. By the third hour, it crossed 10,000. By the end of the day, the comments flooded in. I knew something was off with that influencer. Her voice felt synthetic. This explains it. My cousin went through the same thing. Different girl, same tech. Other victims began sharing their own stories. AI-generated voices used for ransom scams, video doppelgangers asking for money, fake job interviews that led to empty accounts. The floodgates opened, but in the center of the storm was one name, Grace Morrow. Only this time, it wasn't me being questioned. It was her, Ivy. I watched in real time as her brand sponsors paused contracts. A podcast episode scheduled to launch that week was quietly removed. Comment sections, once filled with heart emojis and praise, turned skeptical. Someone even did their own side-by-side comparison and found a half-second glitch in one of her cooking reels. Her hand passes through the cutting board, they wrote. She's not even real. We hadn't even gone public yet. That came next. The live stream was announced under Pulse Protocol's official channels, a neutral-sounding event titled Digital Echoes, Unmasking AI Identity Fraud. It was marketed as a conversation, a case study, a technological unveiling. But behind the scenes, we set up every node, every firewall, every backdoor. It wasn't just a broadcast, it was a battlefield, and the target didn't know she was walking into it. Ivy, still pretending to be Grace, was invited as a guest speaker. She agreed within hours, likely eager to restore her image after the wave of doubt had begun to rise. She didn't know the format had changed, that her mic would be open, that every viewer would see her raw, unedited video stream with no filters, no latency correction, no AI buffers. She showed up smiling. I did not. Chris started the stream with a formal introduction, thanking viewers, welcoming guests. The counter ticked upward, $50,000, $200,000, $700,000. By the time I was introduced, the number hit 2 million. I leaned into the mic. Good evening, my name is Lena Hart, but you may know me by another name, or someone using it. I turned to the screen behind me where we had cued the results of the biometric analysis. This isn't a debate. It's data. Objective, irreversible, verified. Then I clicked play. The side-by-side comparison rolled. Ivy's voice. My voice. Audio resonance dissonance. Blink rate discrepancy. Facial motion tracking. Each error highlighted. Each flaw cataloged. Ivy stayed silent, her smile frozen. Chris activated the second feed. My old financial logs, the trust fund transfers, the communication between John and Ivy, his voice calling her the better version. Then came the final blow. I pulled up a video. It was a private security cam feed from my former home's back porch. Ivy stepping outside late one night, removing a voice modulator from behind her ear, muttering, "I swear if I have to talk like her for one more damn day." That was the moment her face dropped on the stream. The smile evaporated, and the 2 million viewers knew. The lie was dead. I didn't need to say, "I told you so." I didn't need to scream. The silence did it for me. Ivy logged off 5 minutes later. She never spoke again. Within the next 24 hours, news outlets picked up the stream. One headline read, "AI deepfake queen unmasked in front of 2 million viewers." Another called it the trial of the digital century. Her accounts were suspended, investigations launched, and then came the statement from my husband. A press release carefully worded, "We as a family were victims of a sophisticated fraud. We regret any confusion caused. We believed we were acting in good faith." I laughed when I read it, because I had the emails, the signatures, the money trail, the whispered insults caught on surveillance. I released those next. One by one, I dismantled the entire ecosystem they had built around her, not out of spite, out of necessity, because truth doesn't scream, it echoes. And once it starts bouncing, there's no stopping the collapse. The internet moves fast, but when it turns against you, it moves like fire. Within days of the live stream, the fallout spread like a virus. My ex-husband's family, once praised for their charm and tight-knit loyalty, was now dissected by online sleuths and amateur investigators. Bank statements, corporate filings, photos from birthdays and charity events, suddenly recontextualized under the lens of manipulation. Look at how fake the smiles are. Why didn't anyone question her voice? Who even let someone replace their wife? People weren't just angry, they were entertained, and public humiliation is always more addictive when wrapped in justice. The family estate was swarmed with reporters, anonymous threats, protest signs left on the lawn. Return the real Grace. AI can't feel, she can. Investigators subpoenaed financial records. The trust fund, previously sealed under tax exemptions, was reopened. Funds misallocated, missing money, undeclared overseas transfers. They were sinking. But strangely, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt exposed. Because the headlines shifted. No longer was I the victim of identity theft. Now I was the cold strategist, the brilliant woman who staged a live digital execution of her double in front of 2 million people. Some called it poetic justice. Others called it calculated cruelty. A journalist from a major news outlet requested an interview. I declined. They ran the story anyway. The headline read, "Grace Morrow, Avenger or Villain?" The article praised my intelligence, then questioned my morality. Why didn't she press charges? Why didn't she forgive her husband? Why did she wait so long to act? The irony stung. When I was erased, no one asked about my pain. But now that I was heard, they questioned my tone. Power, it turns out, has a cost, and silence had always been cheaper. I returned to work quietly. Pulse protocol expanded. We had more clients than we could handle. Victims flooded our inbox. Donors offered support. Even government agencies reached out asking to license our detection tech. We declined. This wasn't a product. It was a weapon. And I wasn't ready to hand it over. One afternoon, I found a letter at the front desk. No return address, no postage, just my name in delicate handwriting I hadn't seen in months. It was from my mother-in-law. The note was short, a request to meet, no apology, no excuses, just, "Please, one conversation. I need you to understand." I don't know why I went. Maybe because I wanted to hear her say it out loud. Maybe because I needed to know if she'd always hated me, or if this betrayal had a deeper root. We met at a quiet cafe outside the city. She looked older, not just tired, but eroded, like someone who'd been hollowed out from the inside. "I'm not here to justify," she said. "Good," I replied. She folded her hands. "Do you remember the year we lost Claire?" I nodded. Claire was John's older sister, died in a car crash when she was 16. I'd heard the story in passing, just another family tragedy woven into dinner conversations. "She wasn't the first," she said. "Before her, before John, I had another daughter, miscarried late term, almost 6 months along. We named her Ivy." The name hit me like a slap. "She would have been your age now," she continued. "And when Ivy showed up, when she said she was you, it felt like getting a second chance, like the universe was undoing a mistake." I stared at her. "So you replaced me because she had the right name?" "No," she whispered, "because she felt familiar. She was soft. She said thank you. She didn't argue about the thermostat or ask too many questions. She didn't make John feel small." "So you picked her," I said, voice flat. She didn't deny it. "I'm sorry," she said finally, "not just for what we did, but for the fact that it was so easy to do it. You were always strong." I think we resented that. I leaned back, swallowing the acid rising in my throat. "It wasn't about confusion," I said. "It was a choice." She nodded. "I forgive you," I added, "but don't confuse that with forgetting." We didn't hug. We didn't promise to stay in touch. She left. I stayed. And for the first time, I understood the real betrayal wasn't just their silence or their disbelief. It was that when offered two versions of me, one real, one fake, they chose the one that made them more comfortable. Not better, not truer, just easier. And now they'd pay the price for choosing convenience over character. They wanted me to press charges. The district attorney's office reached out twice. They had enough evidence to charge Ivy with identity theft, digital fraud, financial misrepresentation, and conspiracy. The case was airtight. They promised a trial, a conviction, headlines that would finally declare unequivocally who the real Grace Morrow was. But I said no, not because she didn't deserve it, not because I'd forgiven her, but because I'd seen what justice looked like in the hands of institutions. It was slow, it was messy, and it always asked the victim to perform her pain over and over again in order to be believed. I was done performing. Instead, I used the momentum to build something real. Pulse Protocol became a nonprofit. We changed our mission from investigation to restoration. We offered identity recovery services, legal resources, psychological support. We partnered with ethicists, technologists, whistleblowers. We built the first AI verification tool designed not to expose, but to protect. It didn't just detect manipulation, it certified truth. Every day we heard stories from around the world. People whose voices had been used in scams, whose faces were stitched into explicit videos, whose reputations were destroyed by replicas they never authorized. Not just women, not just public figures, anyone, everyone. We didn't give them their old lives back. We helped them build new ones. And in every onboarding call, every resource package, every digital welcome letter, we repeated one message. You are not a glitch. You are not broken. You were stolen, not erased, and you can rebuild. People listened. People believed. And slowly, so did I. I no longer wanted the life I lost, the version of me who waited to be chosen, who begged to be heard, that grace had been defined by the validation of others. But this grace, this Lena, was built from steel and silence and stubborn clarity. I wasn't reclaiming anything. I was rewriting everything. A year later, Ivy disappeared. No social posts, no email activity. Her accounts went dark. Some said she fled the country. Others believed she changed her identity again. I didn't care. She was a ghost in a system that no longer welcomed her. As for the family, John filed for bankruptcy. The house was sold. The trust was dissolved. Last I heard, my former sister-in-law was bartending in Florida under a different last name. My mother-in-law moved to a quiet retirement town where no one knew her as the woman who mistook a deepfake for her daughter. They had unraveled themselves. I didn't need to help. And then, one crisp autumn afternoon, I was invited to speak at TED. At first, I hesitated. I had turned down every interview, every podcast, every documentary request, but something about the stage felt right. It wasn't about attention. It was about legacy. The theater was full. Students, engineers, survivors, skeptics. The kind of room that once would have terrified me. Now it felt like home. I stepped onto the red circle, took a breath, and began. I'm not here to talk about betrayal, I said, or revenge, or the war between real and fake. I'm here to talk about belief. A stillness settled over the crowd. Technology didn't steal my life. People did. People who chose convenience over confrontation. People who wanted the easier version of me, the softer voice, the simpler narrative, a cleaner package. I don't blame the algorithm. I blame the impulse to believe what flatters us more than what challenges us. There were no dramatic visuals behind me, no footage of Ivy, no timeline of events, just a question. Who gets to be real? I told them about the woman who replaced me, but not her name. I told them about the day I was erased, but not the day I returned. I spoke of systems, not scandals, patterns, not people, because the story wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd ever been silenced, minimized, overwritten. I ended with a phrase I'd written weeks before, during a quiet morning alone in the Pulse Protocol office. Technology doesn't create monsters. It mirrors choices. And when we choose to believe a version of someone that requires them to be less than who they are, we don't just erase truth. We invent lies with faces. A pause. Then the room stood. Not for me, for the idea. Afterward, someone asked me how it felt to finally be seen. I smiled. It's not about being seen, I said. It's about being undeniable.